Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi Chind. Firstly, my apologies. Tech always actually plays up a little bit for coming late. I have with me Mr. Tilak Devasher, who's going to help us understand what in the world is happening in Pakistan. And I don't know how else to express what is exactly happening in Pakistan. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. First of all, namaskar, good evening, and wish you a very very happy Diwali. Uh, what an occasion to talk about Pakistan, if I may.
Thank you so much, Adi. I wish you a very happy Diwali to you and all luck to you, health, prosperity,
Thank you,
and
sir.
nice to be back on your show and on an auspicious occasion like Diwali.
Sir, I want to ask you just an opener, right? Is this planned chaos or unplanned chaos? Because somewhere down the line, they these guys are trying to put up a sort of a एक बोलते हैं ना image कि भाई we know what we are doing, sending the Afghans out and this whole politics thing and this and that. How do you look at it? Is this planned chaos or just
No, it's a
chaos or just Pakistan itself?
yeah, it's a very knee-jerk reaction. You're talking about evicting 1.7
Yes,
million
yes,
Afghans.
yes.
It's a totally knee-jerk reaction. You see, in the early part of November last week, there were 4 major attacks in one day. Or a day and a half. There was one in Gwadar, there was one in Lucky Marwat, there was one in Dera Ismail Khan, and then, of course, you had the Miawali one. And 2 or 3 days later, there was a major attack in Tira where a colonel was killed. So, and then before that, there was the attack on Chitral. The Pakistan army just does not know how to deal with the TTP. And they're getting a lot of flack from the media and for other people that, look, what are you doing? Instead of politicking, sort of maneuvering politics and trying to set up a new hybrid regime, why don't you focus on security? So the best way, as what Pakistan has always done, this is Pakistan's template. They externalize the problem. That, हमारी गलती नहीं है, it is Afghanistan. Afghanistan is not taking action against the TTP. And it is the Afghans who are staying in Pakistan who are the root of the problem, and therefore let's throw them out. The fact of the matter is that the TTP is Pakistani nationals. They're all from the tribal areas, which is in Pakistan, at least for the moment. So by pushing out the Afghans, they are making their relations with Afghanistan worse, almost to the breaking point. And they're not going to resolve the problem. Let's say even the push out is 1.7 million. The next step is that they're going to, these are the undocumented Afghans. The next step is going to be the people whose proof of citizenship or Afghan citizenship card, which have expired, which are not being renewed, they will then be pushed out. Though they've given an extension up to 31st December, but they're going to push them out too. Even if you manage to push out roughly 4 million Afghans, the attacks of the TTP are not going to stop. What do they do then? You see, earlier, a similar manner, earlier they would say that the Afghan government is in cahoots with India and they are taking action. The TTP is, fighting with us because the Afghan government is being paid by India. Now, the Afghan government left the republic and the TTP came. The attacks actually intensified. Pakistan would have been far better off with having a person like Mr. Karzai or Ghani in power in Kabul rather than the Taliban. Because even though they were so exuberant that the Taliban victory in August 2021, a year later, and now especially 2 years later, they are almost at daggers drawn. The last statement that the caretaker prime minister, he's made some very serious allegations against Pakistan. He said they are involved in terror. 60%, the attacks have gone up by 60%. The suicide bombings have gone up by 500%. And that is why we're throwing them out. Right? This is going to continue because you are not going to the root of the problem. You're not addressing the problem of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. That's one part of it. The second part, Adi, which is unfortunate, that about 250,000 people have left, have gone back to Afghanistan. The way they have been treated on their journey and the way they have been, their properties have been taken away. They were trying to sell. They've only got about 1/4 or 1/5 of the price. There are people whose children are born in Pakistan, who have stayed here for 40 years. They have never been to Afghanistan. Some of them don't even know how to speak Dari or Pashto. They only know how to speak Urdu. So they are entering Afghanistan for the first time. And, they are allowed to take back only 50,000 rupees per family. They can't take their cattle and a lot of their belongings. So they are going to have such deep-rooted hatred for Pakistan. And as I mentioned earlier, a Pashtun does not forget. Even after 100 years, he will get his revenge. So they are now breeding in the next generation of the TTP and Taliban, whose only aim is going to be hurt Pakistan. So I think it is a totally knee-jerk reaction, and the consequences of this are going to be very severe for Pakistan.
So that, the only thing that comes to my mind when I see a situation like this, although the Pakistanis and much of the Muslim world would actually blame the Israelis for whatever is happening with Hamas, are the Pakistanis making a Hamas for themselves?
Hamas has got one kind of ideology, one kind of tactics. I think for the terrain, Hamas is, let's say, urban warfare. For the terrain and for the area, which is the TTP, is more than adequate. Is much more than Hamas as far as Pakistan is concerned. And that brings me to one other point. The hypocrisy in Pakistan. They are having demonstrations in support of Palestinians, Muslim brethren, this and that. You yourselves are throwing out 1.7 million Muslims from your country. At one time when these people came, you called them holy warriors, Mujahideen.
Yep.
That's the time you welcomed them because you were getting money. And in the training camps, you trained these Mujahideen and sent them back into Afghanistan for your sake or for your own sake and for the US to defeat the Soviets. Aaj wo terrorists ban gaye. I mean, look at how, it comes full circle. So if you call them terrorists, it will be a self-fulfilling prophecy. These people will, some of them at least, are going to join the ranks of the TTP or maybe even set up different organizations. So, whereas Hamas is urban warfare, these guys are for the terrain, the mountainous terrain, and they know this terrain much better than what the Pakistan army knows.
Mm-hmm. That's the major important thing, sir, because here we find ourselves looking at a Pakistan that is basically not thinking once again. My worry is about actually these guys getting a blowback, which they've not really war gamed, and that to me is a bit of a challenge. As you mentioned, it's a war, it's a knee-jerk sort of a reaction by the Pakistanis. So a lot of people have tried to put a little bit of a focus onto why they're doing this. Is it the money? Is it the so-called terrorism that they talk about? What do you think is the primary motive before we start talking about the blowback, the attacks that are coming onto Pakistan?
You see, I personally feel it is a self-defense mechanism because they are not able to deal with the TTP. So you externalize the problem, as I said. Because the Afghan refugees are here, therefore we are having this problem. You get rid of the Afghan refugees. And also, one of the points is this major action has been taken by a caretaker government.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the role of the constitutional role of a caretaker government is to conduct elections and not to take major policy decisions. Though this caretaker government has been given enhanced powers before the PDM government demitted office, they gave them more powers. But this is something which should have been left with the elected government to do. They could have discussed this with the Taliban government, the elected government, and done it in a phased manner. Nobody is saying that Pakistan is not within their rights to ask the refugees to go back. But you could have done it over 3 months, 4 months, and done it in a manner that did not humiliate the Afghans, did not take away their property. You see, now, as refugees, I mean, just aside, as refugees, they were not allowed to own property or do business. So they had to get a Pakistani partner. Now, when the turn came for them to leave, the Pakistani partner is saying, well, thank you very much. So whatever money was owed to them, they haven't got it. And there's nothing that they can do to enforce that. They can't file a case in a court of law and wait for 2 years. They'll be in Afghanistan by then. And they're
Hmm.
doing this at a time when winter is setting in Afghanistan. How are these people going to survive the winter? There have been, as you know, major earthquakes in Herat. There have been floods. The Afghanistan situation is such that a lot of people are suffering in hunger already. Now, if you're going to push in 1.7 million people more, can you imagine the collapse? The kind of trauma. And, according to one figure, the UN, 60% of those going back are children, women and children. 60%, who are the most vulnerable. And in this winter and scarcity of food, how are they going to survive? So it is certainly not a well thought out thing, and the reason is basically to covering their backside, as it were, is that we are having these problems of the TTP because these terrorists are the Afghans are doing it, and we need to get rid of them because they are illegal. That is the
Wow. I
plan. There's
mean,
no other well thought out strategy at all. Of course, and the other motivation is they feel that they can pressurize the Afghan government to take action against the TTP by doing this. And they can
okay.
get them to recognize the Durand Line. We've talked about this earlier, how the Durand Line is a major fault line in Pakistan. But they don't realize which Afghan government has ever relented under pressure. Mullah Omar gave up his rule of Taliban because he refused to hand over Osama bin Laden, even to other Muslim countries. He said, I don't mind if they bomb the hell out of Afghanistan and the Taliban government is low, but I am not going to give up Osama bin Laden. They withstood that pressure. What does Pakistan think that by sending these 1.7 million, even if they manage to do that, the Afghan Taliban are going to relent? No
Mhm.
way. They will not accept or, come under pressure from Pakistan just because they're sending the refugees back.
They'll get even more angry, sir.
Absolutely. As it is, all the leadership of the Taliban, whether it is Mullah Yaqub, Sirajuddin Haqqani, Mutaki, or this, the spokesman, they've all warned Pakistan in different ways. Some being far more severe, that you be prepared for the consequences. Some have been
Hmm.
more diplomatic in their language, that the way you are mistreating and ill-treating the Afghans and taking their property, this is unacceptable. You cannot do this. All the 3 or 4 UN agencies have told Pakistan, don't do this. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, Human Rights Commission of Pakistan, they've all said, just don't do this. Do it in a manner. Even Bilawal Bhutto has said there has to be a method. You have to do it in a manner that does not
Hmm.
humiliate the Afghans and they can go back in a systematic manner. But this is totally a knee jerk. And for the reasons I'd explained, they think they can pressurize Pakistan to taking action. See, again, it's externalizing. Why can't you take
Hmm.
action against the GTP? Why can't you go into Waziristan? Because they'll get a bloody nose again. The GTP now has achieved a certain strength because of more groups joining them, sophisticated weaponry that the US had left behind. They tie up with the Baloch. They're spreading out into areas where they weren't earlier. I mentioned they've set up the shadow provinces. They have set up an administrative structure which is far more centralized, and they've had excellent information warfare going on. They've got their own media. They've got a newspaper. They've got a podcast. They even have a paper called Khawateen Ka Jihad, asking how, why, and how women can support armed struggle. So they
Wow.
are getting more and more organized and strengthening. It's very much replicating what the Taliban did to US and NATO in Afghanistan. So Pakistan realizes, with their financial crunch that they are facing, that it is going to be very, very difficult for them to launch another operation like they had done in Zarbiaz in 2014. It's
Hmm.
going to be very difficult for them. So let somebody else handle the problem. Let at least tide over the next 3 months by saying हमने इनको निकाल दिया.
Band-aid on a bullet wound, sir. I mean,
Absolutely, it's not even a band-aid. It's having a crocine or something, for a major problem.
it's amazing. So whoever comes up with these harebrained schemes. But let's talk about the blowback. I mean, we see attacks all along the Indus today happening. That is pretty significant. We had Dera Ismail Khan, Dera Ghazi Khan, and now Miawali. And if you plot them on a map, it literally borders the Indus. What is the significance of something like that, sir? Because the whole rhetoric of you know atak tak hamara hai and all that stuff, and the Indus is the separating line between Hindustan and Afghanistan.
Yeah.
How do you see this building up? Because is there now going to be a time where Pashtuns will finally start claiming their lands?
It is from, if you see the map, from Waziristan and Fata, they have made ingress into Punjab.
Yes.
Though it is still the border, it's not the heartland of Punjab. It's
Yeah.
like Lahore, Rawalpindi, or Multan, but they are inching their way forward. I mean, like Miawali, Dera Ismail Khan, and places like that are pretty far off from the core areas of the TTP.
Hmm.
They have got two provinces in Punjab, North Punjab and South Punjab. They have two provinces in Balochistan. I mean, they were not there in the Baloch. Today they're in the Baloch areas, in Makran and Kalat. They have a presence over there because they've tied up with some Baloch groups. And on a tactical alliance, they have presences now in Balochistan, in the Baloch areas. They have a unit in Gilgit-Baltistan. And they have 7 provinces in KPK. So they're gradually increasing the influence of the areas at which they can strike. The one thing which the TTP decided under the Amir who took over in 2018, Noor Wali Masood, that they will not target civilian population. They will take on hard military targets. So there was one think tank in Pakistan which had carried out a study and said in the last 9 months, 386 personnel of the security forces have been killed. This includes army, paramilitary, and the police. Adi, that's a casualty of about over 40 per month after month.
Yeah.
Can you imagine 40 security people dying every month for the 9 months? The study was till September. That is the kind of hit that the Pakistan army and the Pakistan forces, the police, is taking. And it is inching its way. The next couple of attacks, if they carry on in this trajectory, will be deeper into Punjab. Because they also know that the heartland is Punjab. And they
That's
have
where
to
the
target Punjab. And you're right, up to Atak was the territory. They claim this is all their watan, this is their land. This was the lands of Ahmad Shah Abdali. And they have now a political agenda. Earlier it was only to setting up Sharia. Now they're talking about Pashtun rights. They want to have their own government. And the Taliban on the other side, who do not recognize the Durand line, are certainly attacking Pakistan's territorial integrity, and you have the TTP on this side. So, from both sides of the Durand line, there is a pincer movement. And I don't think so Pakistan has the capacity or the capability to deal with this issue in a sensitive manner, in an imaginative manner. Look, this is an existential threat that Pakistan faces, much more than any other that they face. But they are not handling it in a manner. In fact, they're handling it in a manner calculated to make it worse. Now,
is that the plan, sir?
if that is a strategy, I don't know. I really wonder what they're thinking, what the think tanks are thinking.
Country who basically claimed that it will kind of nuclear suicide itself. What more can one ask for? Sir, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
let's. Yeah, okay. I think the screen froze off for a second. I'm saying, sir, what more can you expect out of a country who basically wanted to nuclear suicide themselves?
Yeah.
So
As I say that the Pakistan negotiates with a pistol on its head and a grenade in the other hand. That if you don't give me what I want, I'm going to blow myself up.
That's what I wanted to ask you, sir. Now, how big is the possibility that these guys know what kind of a chaos that they're going to get into, and they're still doing it? Because they need the world to come down to them to kind of bail them out. Otherwise, it's time up. And by the end of this month, it's going to be seriously time up, because with that $7 billion they have to give, and this and that, the whole economic part of it. How do you? I mean, is it even realistic that they would do something like this?
I don't think so. They will self-destruct. Certainly, self-destruction is not a calculated policy. It may be the end result of what they're doing. I don't think so. They want to self-destruct. They think that this is the best or easiest option at the moment. That if they focus the attention on the illegal Afghans who have been staying for 20, 30 years in Pakistan, the public attention will get diverted. They will say, ha,
Hmm.
iske wajah se we are having this problem. But that is a very shallow thinking, and if this is the thinking of the Pakistan army at the top echelons, the caretaker government, it's a non-entity. There's nobody thinking about that. But if this is the thinking in the Pakistan army, they have a very serious problem. And I think the world also needs to get up and take notice that can you afford to have nuclear weapons in a country which is thinking in this manner, and the end result, which everybody else, if I can talk about this and see where they are going, other countries, I'm sure other analysts also looking at it in the same manner. So what is
Yep.
it that they're doing? And what is going to be the consequences of this? So can such a country really be allowed to keep nuclear weapons? So I don't think so. It is a deliberate self-destruct. This is the best policy option they came up with. Because see, negotiations have failed with the TTP. The TTP has used that time to strengthen themselves, right? They can't launch another operation in the tribal areas. They don't have the money. They don't have the will that they did in 2014. And I think that people in the tribal areas are now saying, we're not going to vacate this area anymore. Like we've done in 2014 and 15, you made us vacate. We're not going to do it now. The option of going into Afghanistan and attacking so called camps is also not there. Because earlier, you see, the US drone strikes were there, which took out the leadership of the TTP.
Hmm. Hmm.
Today, that is not there. So, and the TTP is going to respond. If the minute Pakistan crosses the Durand line and attacks Afghanistan, even if it is camps, the TTP will hit back, the Taliban will hit back. That will lead to a real spike in terrorism. And the Taliban have got a whole lot of trained suicide bombers. And they will not restrain themselves only to hard military targets. And also, let's not forget that the Taliban are, or the TTP is talking about hard military targets, but the ISKP, Islamic State, Khorasan province, they are the ones targeting the civilians. Recently in September, there was this big attack in Mastung on the Prophet's birthday. 60 people died. That was done by the ISKP. Before that, there was an attack on a JUI rally in Bajor. Again, about 40 or 50 people died. So the civilian areas are vulnerable to attacks of the ISKP, which believes in indiscriminate killing. The TTP attacks only hardened targets, which is the security forces, the army, police, and the paramilitary. How are they going to defend themselves against the ISKP? In fact,
That's my.
the reason that the ISKP has become strong in Pakistan is because the Taliban have acted against it in Afghanistan. They have pushed out ISKP from many areas. So they have come into areas like Bajor and other places and started attacking Pakistan because they know that in Afghanistan, they are faced with the Taliban. So at least to tackle the ISKP, Pakistan should have done or talked to the Taliban, who's actually doing them a favor, rather than throwing out the Afghans. Now the Taliban's back is up. They're now going to sort of ease up on the ISKP and make sure all the ISKP cadres go into Pakistan and hit Pakistan even more, especially on the civilian casualties, mass casualties. So it's a very tricky situation for Pakistan.
Exactly. I mean, I'm kind of somebody would have war gamed this and kind of not kind of put it into place. But let me bring this out. So the recent Miyawali attack. I mean, that is pretty significant. We see attack on a major Air Force base. Of course, that's a training base. There's that whole lot of other things. Conflicting reports between 3 to 14 fighter aircraft damaged, 35 chaps killed. Forget the numbers. And when I covered this on my channel at that time, also we said, forget the numbers. It doesn't matter. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 10, 20. It doesn't matter. It's semantics. What matters is the symbolism of this particular attack. How do you put it into perspective? Because one, going into a military air base is a Fidain attack. They would have known what is their fate. One. two is, I want to ask you, what would their message be to the Pakistani army, that listen, you better start looking inwards, or what is it, sir?
See, the message is very clear that we can hit you at a place and time of our choosing.
Hmm.
If it's a hardened military target, it doesn't matter. We can still hit you. And in terms of operational tactics, I think the TTP is also looking for targets of opportunity.
Yep.
They may have found a weakness in this particular airbase. You see, the TTP has all targeted air bases in the past too. You'll recall the attack on the Mehran naval base. There was an attack on the Kamra air base, which is called the Minas air base. So, these are high visibility attacks.
Ji.
Attack on an air force base is very highly visible. And, I won't agree with you that the numbers don't matter, because numbers do matter, because, quantity has a quality of its own. So
That
if
way is
you've
okay.
knocked off 10 aircraft, sorry, and killed off 35 people, it has a huge impact. People wonder that, what are our security forces doing? You can pass it off as saying, the training command, or these were, obsolete aircraft. It doesn't make a difference. The fact is, these are high value targets. These are high visibility targets.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying, sir. So numbers, yes, but the the spectacle of an attack of that sort is,
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, it's huge. And the message is, we're going to hit you. We can hit you anywhere we like.
interesting, because one thing that we are seeing with regards to Pakistani army, and correct me if I'm wrong here, this is mere speculation, is the factor that you see them kind of running from pillar to post with regards to reacting to situations. The Pakistanis, especially in this region, were not very reactive. They were always proactive, and they were able to actually create trouble for others. How do you see this change of position between the so-called number one agency, ISI, to what it is today? It's not able to predict. It's not able to get the intel of what is actually going to hit them.
It is very strange. You'll find that in Pakistan, they use one expression: intelligence based operations.
Hmm.
Now, for the life of me, I can't figure out when is an operation not intelligence based. You don't go on a fishing expedition when you launch an operation, isn't it? You have specific inputs. So all operations are intelligence based. So this attack on Tira, for example, where the colonel was killed, all these places. So earlier, probably the TTP was much weaker, right? It did not have the kind of resources that it has now. And that's one of the reasons why the army does not want to go in, even if they have intelligence. They will do these small, localized attacks. There is no major attack like Azerbaijan, which has been carried out, where they cleared up village after village. Today, they're not in a position to do that. And it may be because of lack of intelligence, but it is more because of lack of capability and lack of intent. Because with the army and the army chief and the leadership bogged down in political engineering, trying to resurrect a new hybrid regime during the election, Jod Tod, getting the electables to shift from here, where is the time to focus on security issues? Then focus, in an emergency and an insurgency which is so dangerous, you need to focus 24/7 on what is happening on the ground. And that, I think, is the reason why the sense is that the ISI has lost its capability, because they're not able to get the intelligence. Even if they do get the intelligence, they're not in a position to attack. So this myth of intelligence-based operations is basically to tell people, look, हम भी intelligence कर रहे हैं, हमारे पास बड़ी intelligence आ रही है. अरे भाई, कब नहीं होता? Intelligence-based operation, any operation is intelligence-based. I'll give you another example. Why is the TTP? In South Punjab and North Sindh, there's a Kacha area, or the Indus backwaters. They have a whole lot of dacoits over there. And the dacoits have been there for decades. They're not able to get rid of the dacoits. Every now and then, the dacoits go and kidnap a SHO, or kidnap a policeman, or kidnap villagers and demand large amount of ransom. They have set up special cells. They have set up, they called in the army. The army has used all kind of weaponry. They can't get rid of the dacoits. And that's a low-lying area. It's not even a mountainous area. So, that cutting edge is certainly not there anymore. Maybe because it is of the political turmoil in Pakistan, maybe because of the corruption. Everybody is looking after his own personal interests. There is no sort of national interest. And, the kind of polarization that has taken place in Pakistan, thanks to Imran Khan. Either you are for Imran Khan or you are against Imran Khan.
Again,
So
there's
this
no
is
center
seeped,
point. Yeah.
this is also seeped into the security forces. But this does not mean that security forces are going to rebel in favor of Imran Khan. But the sense of feeling that he was okay or he was not okay. So I mean, I could even say demoralization amongst the security forces. But there is a problem that you are taking 40 security forces in 9 months, per month, 380 in 9 months. Can you imagine the impact on the morale of the police, or the paramilitary, and of the army? So, and the Baloch are also active. Here we're talking only about the TTP, but we're looking at the Baloch also. And have been active since 2005, and Pakistan Army has not been able to take them out. So, all around, the security has become now a very complex and a very major existential threat to Pakistan.
How do you think the world is looking at it, sir? Because somebody's got to be telling them, what are you guys doing?
I think the US has made some statements. And they're also worried. They're also worried about, because after all, it is a nuclear weapons power. It's a country with 240 million. Nobody wants to see it imploding. You see, I was reading an article in the Pak media. And again, what a beautiful justification and cover-up he gave. He said, while these attacks are serious, they in no way impact the operational efficiency of the Pakistan army. These are too minor. That is a very weird kind of justification, because this is how insurgencies begin. They gradually expand their area of operations. They gradually expand the kind of deadly force that they use, and target hard targets where they want to. How did the Taliban insurgency, which began in 2003, it started in a very small manner in Kandahar and gradually went over all over Afghanistan. So, rest of the world, the US, China especially, would be looking at this in a very, very serious manner, that, Pakistan cannot control this. And it is only going to get worse, because they don't see any light at the end of the tunnel. So what happens to their investments? What happens to their citizens who are in that country? What happens to the nuclear weapons? These are all the kind of things that countries and various ministries of foreign affairs and the security agencies would be looking at and examine it very closely.
It's so funny that you're kind of creating a plan which really you don't know where you're getting into. Let me talk about Afghanistan for a little bit, and how the Afghans are kind of pitching around with the Pakistanis before I come towards the end, and we can take some audience questions as well, sir. We see the Chinese approaching Afghanistan more aggressively than they're engaging with Pakistan. We know that road from Wakhan into Afghanistan is ready. The Mullah Baradar recently spoke about the factor that we'll connect Zaranj and straight into Chabhar and all that stuff. That tells you that the whole Pakistani dream of actually inculcating Afghanistan into the CPEC, that has realized minus Pakistan. So it's becomes so how do you see the Pakistanis looking around and saying, what happened here?
You see, China has both strategic interest and a economic interest in Afghanistan. Their interest is that the Uyghurs don't get sanctuary and don't go to training camps in Afghanistan. So they've been in touch with the Taliban for some time. Earlier, they were in touch through Pakistan. Now they're directly in touch with Taliban. So basically to secure their soft underbelly, which is Xinjiang. The other economic motive, of course, is they feel that they're buying into the propaganda that Pakistan is full of rare earths, और हर 10 किलोमीटर जाओ तो आपको या यूरेनियम मिलेगा या आपको you'll get lithium here, you'll get gold there, you'll get this over there. So they've got this copper mine, they Sinec, and they feel that this can be a huge opportunity for them, much more so than what Pakistan is giving to them. So these are the two aims that China has, and I think they've also realized. See, CPEC has peaked. It was supposed to be $62 billion investment. It has not gone beyond 25 because Chinese also realize that Pakistan does not have the absorption capacity, or Pakistan is not in a position to repay the loans that they have taken. So there's no further investment coming into CPEC. The last meeting of the joint group, which was held in July, I think the minutes could not be finalized till May. Almost a year. There also, whatever Pakistan had proposed, China shot it down. They weren't just interested. So they're looking at Afghanistan as not as an alternative, but as an adjunct. You see, what can Afghanistan offer to CPEC? That's the other question. People keep telling Afghanistan will become part of CPEC. The connection outlet is through Pakistan. And given the kind of relationship between Afghanistan and Pakistan as they are now, where Pakistan has stopped about 1,000 containers destined for Afghanistan at Karachi port, they're not releasing them.
Yep.
Where is the CPEC and Afghanistan joining CPEC? Where is it going to get an outlet, either into Gwadar or into Karachi? So unless this issue is resolved between Afghanistan and Pakistan, China trying to push them to join CPEC is a non-starter. So China has its own bilateral interests, which are strategic as well as economic. But how far they can fulfill either? TTP would be looking, or Taliban would be looking for fighters. And if the Uyghurs and the ETIM sort of volunteer, who's to know what is happening in the hills of the tribal areas? So China, I think, is also hedging its bets. Hasn't started, but I think it is looking at hedging its bets because of the capacity issues in Pakistan, the lack of vision, the lack of leadership, the lack of implementation. So they have a major issue.
So, anyways, I want to ask you about the politics a little bit. So this guy now has been brought about like a farishta from the sky, Nawaz Sharif. He comes in and let's look at his portfolio. He's got corruption cases that suddenly get wiped out. He's got the slate clean. His own brother has been discredited so that he cannot be brought in any way. Billo Rani is probably doing some mujra somewhere. He's not to be seen. Sidelined completely. So this guy is, I don't know why they're even wasting money on an election. They could probably just go on to Twitter, as they call it, and just do the election and finish it off. So he's been brought in. Economically, they're downtrodden. Weapons, we know Saudi Arabia has open eyes on them, especially with the Israel war right now. They're looking much more harder into this situation. Land-wise, I personally believe, and please correct me if I'm wrong, KPK is gone. It's gone. I mean, you can keep it in your map, but it's gone. It's not there. A lot of people may disagree or agree. POK has a major issue, which is creating trouble for them. The Gilgit-Baltistan has major issues there. Baloch, there are problems. The other day, some Chinese got hit in Balochistan as well. They're not coming out and saying how many. Now, what is Nawaz Sharif been brought for? Or is it that he wants to die in the country? I'm sorry, I'm being a little farcical and probably a little harsh as well. But what has he been brought in back for?
You see, one thing is that the slate has not been wiped clean yet. What has happened is that those two cases, that is Al Azizia and Avonfield, his appeals against the judgment have been admitted. That is one first step. He's out on bail. So he won't be arrested. But he has been disqualified for life by a judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, the former PDM government under Shehbaz Sharif passed a bill, or now an act, the Supreme Court Powers Act, which Bandial was former Chief Justice was acting funny with and said, you can't do this and kind of a thing. The bench set up by Qazi Isa, they have said, no, that bill is fine, which allows that the suo motu powers, which are exercised only by the Chief Justice, now has to be exercised by a panel, of 3 judges. So they've accepted that. But what was added onto the bill was that an appeal could be filed against disqualification of under Article 62 retrospectively. This would have allowed Nawaz Sharif to appeal and get that judgment overturned, that the disqualification would be only for 5 years, and he has completed 5 years. That the Supreme Court bench has struck down, declared it ultra vires. So that escape hatch, which was being built for Nawaz Sharif to contest elections, that is blocked by the Supreme Court as far as this is concerned. So what they're doing now is that the Election Act was also amended to say that where the Constitution does not prescribe a period of imprisonment, that period will be 5 years. The Article 62 is that every legislator has to be Sadiq and Amin. He has to be honest and things like that. So he has already done 5 years. So under that, he can contest the elections. Now, this is a very iffy thing. People can go and appeal and say that unless the Supreme Court clears it, how come under just the Election Act this is being done? So I'm not sure he's out of the woods yet. The matter still has to go. It has to be tested judicially. And he only has a month. Elections have been announced on 8th of February. The Election Commission requires 54 days from the announcement of the election schedule till the elections are held. 54 days. That means for Nawaz Sharif to file his papers, he has to be cleared of all these charges and cases by the first week of December. He has got 1 month, less than 30 days, in which he has to be allowed. Now, he came back possibly with the assurance that all this would be taken care of. But they did not contend with the bench of set up by Qazi Isa to stymie that Supreme Court Act. So now let's see what he does. So I'm not sure it's a done deal. These are the big hurdles, judicial hurdles, that he has to clear. Second,
is it a hurdle, or is it being made and kept?
It's a Damocles sword hanging on his head. That whatever you did for the last 3 times when you took a panga with the army, just make sure you don't do it this time. But the other thing is that Nawaz Sharif is coming back to a Pakistan which has changed radically in the last 4 years. He was away in 2019. He was removed in 2017. It's a different Pakistan. Thanks to Imran Khan, thanks to social media, thanks to trolls, and the electorate, 44% of the electorate, or 55 million people, are between the ages of 18 and 34. And we know for a fact the bulk of them support Imran Khan. If they were to go out and vote, of course, for the young people, you can never be sure that they will actually vote. But if they do go out and vote, it will be a game changer. In the 2018 elections, there were about 80 constituencies, especially in Punjab, that were won by a margin of only 1,000 votes.
Yeah.
There were another 25 or 30 constituencies won by a margin of 2,000 votes. And another 30 or 40 which were won by a margin of 6,000 votes. So if this huge chunk of the youth actually goes out and votes, how does the army engineer the election? Unless they physically prevent them from voting. Or they have what's called the RTS, they switch off the machine, stuff ballot boxes. There's a very crude way of doing it. To an extent, the election has already been rigged. It should have been held within 90 days of 9th of August. That is by 9th November, the election should have been held. And if it was held then, the PTI would have swept the polls. By postponing it by 3 months, that's the first step on rigging. The second step is you've broken up the PTI by setting up a party in South Punjab, that IPP Istaqam Pakistan party by Jahangir Tareen. And you set up the PTIP in NWFP by Pervez Khattak. And armies made sure that a lot of electables in different districts and constituencies joined these two parties. So the PTI's strength is being chipped away. By that, they hope that they will be able to cobble a majority or a slim majority for Nawaz Sharif, or less than a majority, and get other parties. So now you'll finally find that the PMLN is in talks with the MQM for seat sharing in Karachi. They're in talks with this Sindhi nationalist parties for adjustments in rural Sindh, which is the PPP's
Wow.
industry. What the PPP has done, they've now come out with a statement that they're willing to talk to the PTI for a seat sharing adjustment. Can you imagine the PPP and the PTI, which have been sworn enemies, daggers drawn, for the last 4 years, suddenly want to talk to each other? So, the whole political, run up to election, there always is a lot of churning. So, what I'm trying to say is that for Nawaz Sharif to come back as Prime Minister is not yet a done deal. All indications are yes, it may happen, but it is not yet a done deal because there are lots of ifs and buts and a lot of irons in the fire. I'm sure Shehbaz Sharif is also watching this, seeing which way the wind blows. So is Mariam. And the problem with the PPP is that they have lost their strength in Punjab decades ago. Punjab was Zulfikar Ali Bhutto's major strength apart from Sindh. Benazir also had little success in Punjab. But thereafter, PPP has not been able to make inroads into Punjab. And the same thing continues now. So it's a very interesting, the next 3 months politically are going to be very interesting. And especially, I think you'd keep a watch on the judicial cases against Nawaz Sharif. Which way they progress, whether they progress at all, or he finds that he's back in jail because the bail is removed. I'm sure the hard negotiations are going on.
Yeah, step one.
Laying down what. And so, though when the protocol that he was given and the way he was pitched as the next Prime Minister, that speech in Minar-e-Pakistan and things like that, it could well happen. But it may not happen either. So I think we just have to wait and see how the judicial cases progress. And if he crosses the judicial hurdle, then is he able to galvanize? You see, the PMLN's electoral strategy has been based on what is called Thana Kacheri. You use the police and you use the courts to get electables on your sides. But for the last 4 or 5 years, Thana Kacheri, the old world politics, has been surpassed by social media and the social media team. Among the youth population, which, as I mentioned, 55 million of the voters. So it's a different world that Nawaz Sharif has come to.
My last question to you, sir, is, I'm going to split it in 2 small parts. One, of course, you can answer in probably, one odd word. But the second part, the main question I want to ask you is, so how are the Pashtuns looking at it? The PTM, the Tahaffuz movement, and these fringe elements which are there around the place. And of course, how do you think this larger population that is getting thrown out of Pakistan right now, how do you think these groups like ISKP, TTP, Taliban, they're Al-Qaeda, and just so many groups which are there around, how do you think they are approaching these guys with regards to further recruitment, build up? Because it's if I were one of their chiefs, I'll say, yaar pakdo inko, to ye to readily motivated with full of hatred, thodi si chabi ghumani hai, you turn around and they'll be popping up within Pakistan pretty easily. So how do you think these groups are going to react? Part 2, who are these unknown gunmen, sir?
Sarai Maklouk. So, to take up your first question, I'm sure all the groups are going to be looking at recruits because there'll be people who have lost all their earnings, people who have never been to Afghanistan before. They'll all be hungry for revenge. But these are not trained cadres. You see, whether it is the TTP, whether it is the ISKP, whether it's Al-Qaeda, all their cadres are ideologically motivated. They've spent years in madrasas. They've been taught the virtues of jihad and shahadat. A normal Pashtun who has spent his life in Karachi and maybe gone to a government school, maybe gone to madrasa either, but not the kind of madrasas that prepare people for jihad. So while they may be wanting to join and get back revenge, they will have to undergo a period of ideological training. You see, all these jihadi groups, the common factor about them is that they look for people who are ideologically committed. Who don't mind dying to achieve shahadat and, in the afterlife. But a normal guy, a laborer on the road, he may hanker for revenge. He may want to shoot somebody, but he doesn't become a jihadi automatically. So these recruits or people who want to join, and people, I'm sure the ISKP, especially, is highly ideologically motivated. They are Salafis. And so they will have to train these people for some time in madrasas and tell them what is jihad, what is shahadat, and then motivate them to fight. So that is one part of it. The reaction of other Pashtuns, I have not seen a statement by the PTM yet. I think Muzin Dawar has made some. He was earlier in the PTM, now he's his own political party. The ANP came up with a very interesting statement. Amal Wali, who's the son of Asfandiyar Wali and grandson of Wali Khan, he tweeted, he said, I'm a proud Pashtun, I'm a proud Afghan, and I'm a proud Pakistani. Now, this is a very, very loaded statement. You see, because as I mentioned some time ago, Pashtun and Afghan are interchangeable. Because the Persian word for Pashtun was Afghana, Afghan. So when he said he's an Afghan, he's right. He is an Afghan. He is not an Afghani. Now, that is a difference, subtle difference, which the Punjabi does not understand. So he got trolled badly on Twitter, X as it is called now, saying that this guy is a traitor. He says he's an Afghan. He's not an Afghani. He's not a citizen of Afghanistan. But he is a Pashtun. And Pashtuns and Afghans are interchangeable. What he was saying is absolutely correct. So that was a statement showing your affinity to the Pashtuns. And to be honest, 90% of these refugees going back are Pashtuns. Which Pakistan is saying they're Afghans. But Pashtun will understand. When you say Afghan, you mean Pashtun. 90% of them are Pashtuns. And this harks back to what Wali Khan had said in the National Assembly. He said, I've been a Pashtun for 4,000 years. A Muslim for 1,400. And a Pakistani only for 40. So for him, his ethnic identity was far more important than either the religious identity or the Pakistani identity. And that is a trait which most Pashtuns, they may be happy to be in Pakistan, but most Pashtuns accept this stratified, identity. They are Pashtuns first, then Muslims, and then, Pakistanis. Zia and Pakistan's effort has always been to convert the identity into an Islamic identity first. So people say I'm a Muslim first, then a Pashtun. How far that has worked, I'm not sure. I don't have any sort of ground situation, but this is, yeah. So this is a problem with the Pashtun that Pakistan has. That, and I keep mentioning, they're not handling this sensitively. So when the Pashtuns in Pakistan see their ethnic brethren from the other side of the border being treated in a shabby manner, and the Pashtuns pride themselves in their hospitality in giving refuge. The concept of Pashtun Wali called Nanvati. If somebody seeks refuge with you, you cannot deny it.
You cannot, even if it's an enemy.
Yeah. That's why Mullah Omar refused to hand over Osama bin Laden. And here Pakistan is pushing out not 1 or 2, but 1.7 million. So what impact it has, as per Pashtun Wali, on the Pakistani Pashtuns, I think time will tell. And your second question was?
Who are these unknown gunmen who are doing... First and foremost, I wanted to request all the audience, Aaj Diwali hai. Everybody will be lighting a diya. Please light a diya for this unknown gunman, whoever it is, running across all around the world, taking out people. Whoever they are, pray for their good health. But who the hell are they, sir, in your opinion?
Let me be very candid in this. The ISI has a tradition and history of getting rid of people whom they have used and who are no longer useful. The
I've been saying that.
The person who set up the Anjuman Sipai Sahaba,
Yeah.
or Sipai Sahaba called Azam Tariq, he was bumped off by the ISI in 2003.
Hmm.
The people who set up the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, the anti-Shia thing, were two of the three leaders have been killed off in encounters. I'm forgetting their names. The third leader, Akram Lahori, was recently released from prison. And I will not be surprised if in a little while you find that he has met unknown gunmen. So this is a tradition. Wherever they find they're no longer useful to them, or they're not
Hmm.
following their orders, or they want to give up terrorism, give up jihad, they will get rid of them with the blink of an eyelid.
Yeah.
So while they may be unknown, I'm sure the ISI has a very good sense because they're probably doing it themselves.
This is what I've been kind of arguing, so that what has happened is money is dried up. The Taliban is not growing poppy anymore. ठीक है? So these guys, they were the generals didn't want to get their hands dirty, so they gave it to these minions to handle the drug work and the prostitution and this and that and the other. Today the money is drying up and these guys are eating most of the share. So the first thing is what? Get rid of these guys. Simple as
Yeah.
that. Let the money directly come to me. I don't care if my hands are dirty a little bit. This is my logic of it. And of course, there's pressure from India, there's pressure from the US to clean up your act and this and that. So, theek hai yaar. And the best thing is that they're not killing the top end chaps.
Yeah.
It's the number two which are going.
Yeah. So they want to make sure that the support system for the top, they'll cut the legs off.
Yeah.
And either bring in new people or set up new organizations. Now, what will a Hafiz Said do if he doesn't have people around him to carry out his orders or to implement them?
I have a couple of people.
in the way, in the interior, people are getting bumped off. The only people who have access over there is the Pakistani, the ISI itself. Who else is going to go into the godforsaken places and bump off these guys? The Lashkar, the recent guy who was killed was the elite's recruiter, chief recruiter, a couple of days ago. Somebody else, I think yesterday, has been again, hoorified, as the word says.
So I have a couple of people, I think, who completely agree with you. One gentleman is from South Waziristan who says, and to be honest, we don't accept the Durand line. We also have another gentleman called Norman Sheikh, who very clearly said, give the Pashtun areas to Afghanistan, problem solved. Simple as that. No twists, no turns, nothing else. This is what it is. So I have you can imagine. I think what you're saying is kind of resonating behind the green curtain, if I may, as well, sir. Let's take a couple of questions and to end this fantastic discussion. Although I've been waiting to talk to you for a while. First, I've been running around, and you've been running around. So I guess times have not in. And what a better day to join up other than Diwali. So it's an honor to have you on my platform. First and foremost, JP, thank you so much. He says Pashtun 18%, Baloch 3.6%. Pashtun revolt will end Pakistan.
I would say it'll end. I mean, you'll have a rump Punjab still left over. But if, the Baloch area, which is bulk of the coastline of Pakistan, is a Baloch area. And KPK, where the up to the Indus, Punjab will be landlocked and will find very difficult to exist. So it is a huge fault line, the Durand line. That's why they've been so insistent, even in Taliban 1.0, for them to accept the Durand line at the international border. And I think I'll explain in the earlier program why it is a fault line and why no Afghan government has so far accepted the Durand line, and no Afghan government even in the future will accept the Durand line. Because in 1949, a Loya Jirga called by the Afghan government had revoked all the treaties, especially the 1921 treaty, which allowed, that's the last treaty which is called the Indo-Afghan border. In fact, not even the Pakistan-Afghan border, it's the Indo-Afghan border. If anybody has a claim, it is India, as inheritors of British India, which said that After 3 years, any of the two parties, that is the British India or Afghanistan, could revoke the treaty with giving 12 months notice. And in 1949, Afghanistan just did that. So there is no boundary as far as Afghanistan is concerned. And Pakistan knows this. And that's why they're so desperate to have the Durand Line recognized. And increasingly, as these troubles with Afghanistan increase, with the Taliban, with the refugees, with the TTP, the Durand Line salience is going to go up. And people are going to question it even more.
I think you hit the nail on the head, sir. Norman Sheikh Saab, thank you so much. I think you're from Afghanistan. Correct me if I'm wrong, Norman. So please let me know. I've also asked you to write me an email about some proofs that you want to send across with photographs. So please do that. Norman, once again, thanks so much. He says, do talk about Mullah Brother's visit to Chabahar.
Yes, he had I think he was 3-4 days in Iran.
Yes, sir.
And talked about several issues. And I'm sure Afghanistan is also looking at alternate exits, routes to the sea. Because they know they're very vulnerable to Karachi. Because Pakistan can pull the plug. As I mentioned, there are 1,000 Afghan containers which are piled up in Karachi port, and Pakistan is not releasing them. So an excess out of Iran, this is what, the India building the highway through Zaranj and down to Chabahar. That was the whole intention, to give Afghanistan an alternative so that they're not dependent on Pakistan at all. So I think that's a very significant visit. But at the same time, what Iran has been doing, taking advantage of what Pakistan has done, they're also pushing out Afghan refugees.
Yeah.
They have not announced it, but I think about 20,000 or so have been pushed back. Quietly Iran is doing it and pushing them back to the Islam Kala
वो तो सर अब सब हाथ धो रहे हैं तो मैं भी धो लेता हूँ बीच में, क्या प्रॉब्लम है?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But it's a very interesting relationship between Taliban, Sunni Taliban, and Shia Iran. It's a very interesting relationship.
Yeah. Subroto Mukherjee ji, thank you so much. Hi sir, a big fan. Salute to you for doing such a great job. I don't miss any of your videos. Thank you. I believe you're talking to sir or me. I don't know, but I think on sir's behalf, I would like to say I don't miss sir's videos anywhere. So it's an honor to actually have sir on my platform as well.
Thank you.
Stolly the Wise, you're here again from Florida first thing in the morning. Correct me, you're from Florida, right? Yesterday you said sir's book on Balochistan landed yesterday for me, and this book is on the Pashtun land soon. So I'm excited for this one. So you have
book
another
on
reader.
Baloch or the Pashtuns?
Baloch landed yesterday. Pashtuns is coming in, sir.
Okay. Great. I hope you enjoy reading them.
Back to back, sir. 7 says, Aadi, did China order this exodus who told Pakistan to take this step when everyone knows that Afghanistan would reply? Why did the Pakistani army do this? And can they afford this blunt mistake?
So as I mentioned, it's a knee-jerk reaction because they're not able to tackle the TTP. See, China would not want to do it because why would they create problems for Afghanistan when they also want to do a deal with Afghanistan? They don't want to create more problems with Afghanistan. And it is not the Afghan refugees who they know are not involved in targeting the Chinese. It is the TTP, which are Pakistani nationals. So I don't think it will be the Chinese. It's just the Pakistani themselves who have taken this step without seeing the end game, without wargaming the end game, and what the consequences of this would be.
Sir, I'm just putting out one odd comment with regards to an appreciation for you. There's so many of them. Priyank Thakkar, he says, Tilak sir is a goldmine of knowledge and wisdom. I think most of the comments that have come in the platform right now are basically appreciative of the way that you've explained stuff. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Thank all the people who have sent comments. I can't thank them personally, but many thanks to all of you.
So SN says, assuming the Baloch and Taliban secure their borders from Pakistan, will they respect the boundaries in the future and region get any more peaceful? Or they have more vicious ideological ambitions?
You see, my study of both the Baloch and the Pashtuns is that they are happy with their land, their ancient ancestral land. They're not eyeing any other land. In fact, like Quetta, people get confused. Quetta is the capital of Balochistan. What are the Pashtuns doing there? Quetta has always been a Pashtun city, and the Baloch are happy with it. The Baloch don't want Quetta. They know it's a
Hmm.
Pashtun city. Likewise, neither the Taliban nor the TTP have a pan Afghanistan or a pan Fatah agenda yet. I don't think so. They will happen in the future also. The Taliban have made it clear. That's one of the differences with Al Qaeda and with the ISKP, that they don't believe in a global jihad or caliphate or anything like that. He is Amirul Momineen in Afghanistan. And likewise, earlier, the TTP was close to Al Qaeda. They believed in
Yep.
their global agenda and all that. But since Nur Wali Masood has come, they have distanced themselves from Al Qaeda's global jihad or this whole business of spreading in different territories. They're happy with what they have, but they want full control of that. And their target is Pakistan. So they
John
will
Doe
stay
has a
within their boundaries. They will stay
so
within their boundaries.
John Doe has a comment. He says has sought solutions that were worse than the problem, and has become friendly with the other's enemies.
Repeat that.
Has sown solutions which are worse than the problems, and has become friends with the enemies. So
But
it's. I mean, they're digging a hole in front of themselves.
that they are, certainly. And the solution is what they think is a solution is actually going to boomerang on them.
Yep.
They're going to boomerang. And in fact, one of the things we haven't talked about, which is the possibility, I'm not sure it'll happen, is the possibility of urban warfare. Like you mentioned about Hamas. Now, Karachi was the largest Pashtun city in the world. 5 million Pashtuns. We don't know how many people are being pushed out of Karachi, but some of the media reports are they've been pushed out very badly. Being treated very badly. So, will it lead to a organized movement, peaceful or armed, in Karachi? How does Pakistan deal with a situation of urban warfare?
That's my problem, sir. Because when I look at it, and I'll just take 30 seconds. There are a couple of more questions, and then we'll kind of end the show, sir. When I look at terrorism as a phenomenon, what I see is a replication of efforts, right? What happened with regards these paramotors and stuff like that? There are enough reports, not much in the public domain, but there were enough reports in 2017, 2018 that the LET was also trying out these paramotor sort of tactics. There have been reports last year where these terrorists were hanging under these big huge drones and basically jumping into Indian territory. So these kind of things spread, and I'll give you a live example. So during the Paris protests, one guy took these 100 shot that things, and he pointed it at the cops and basically just lit it up, and that thing was firing out. A week later, when there was a protest in America, one of these black chaps actually picked it up and did the same thing to the cops. So this thing kind of spreads like wildfire. The sheer factor that Hamas is, whatever said and done, hit Israel in the way that they've done. Do you see a similar attack happening on Pakistan? Because
So I said,
border, I mean,
if any city faces that kind of problem, it would be Karachi, because of the
yeah.
sheer numbers of Pashtuns and also Baloch. Don't forget that the port is dominated by Baloch workmen. Karachi
Mm.
port. Were the Baloch in Karachi, were they to sort of get really upset, they could paralyze Karachi port. The entire transport network, or bulk of the transport network in Pakistan, is run by Pashtuns. Who are now a lot of them are being sent back now. So you're opening up, you could open up many fronts. I'm not saying it'll happen, but you could open up many, many more fronts because of the ham-handed manner in which this has been done. This is a very macho Punjabi thing, dikha diya unko kind of a thing.
Huh.
But they are dealing with the wrong people, even though they have dealt with the Pashtuns for so many years. As the saying goes, that you can, as a friend, a Pashtun will go with you to hell, but you can't force him even to go to heaven. You can't push a Pashtun and expect that he will not bite you back. So they're certainly opening up many, many more fronts for themselves.
So question on the gunmen, sir. He says, RK Saab, if the unknown gunmen of Pakistan are ISI guys, then who are the unknown gunmen of Canada?
Why? You remember? There was one dissident Baloch in Sweden who was
Yeah, yeah,
bumped off. There was a
yeah.
dissident journalist, a lady in human rights
Karima
activist,
Baloch.
Kariba Baloch in Balochistan, in Canada, who was bumped off.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So the unknown
No,
gunmen of
no.
Pakistan are all over. They tried to do it in Belgium. They couldn't succeed.
Are you trying to say they have a lot of reach, sir?
It's. I think as the economy contracts and as people get more and more frustrated, there are guns for hire. Arshad
Weber
Sharif, for
Sharma.
example. Arshad
Yeah,
Sharif.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Weber Sharma has an interesting comment. He says, "Boya beej babul to aam kahan se hoye."
Yeah. True.
Yeah,
So this
and
is terrorism, as you know, as Nurwali Masood told the Pakistani ulama, that we are carrying out jihad as per what you taught us in your madrasas. We've learnt jihad from your madrasas. So why are you now saying that jihad is wrong? And the Pakistani ulamas haven't come up with an answer. So
JBJP,
once
thank.
you
Sorry.
you keep snakes, that famous comment, keep
Yeah,
snakes in your backyard, they're going to ultimately bite you.
JBJP, thank you so much. He says, "Tilak ji, लगता है पंजाब पाकिस्तानी पंजाबी ਨੂੰ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਸਮਝ ਨਹੀਂ ਆਂਦੀ ਤੁਹਾਡੀ."
पाकिस्तानी पंजाबी में समझ आती? अरे yeah, I
Syed
think they need
Umesh
to listen.
Gilani
They need to
says,
listen
"Tilak."
to what I'm saying or read my
Yeah,
books 2-3 times. फिर समझ आएगी.
समझ में आएगी. But पाकिस्तान में बैन होंगी ना सर आपकी बुक्स तो?
No. The first 3 books are available in bookshops in
अच्छा,
Pakistan.
चलो
The
ठीक है.
fourth is
But
not available because the trade between India and Pakistan was stopped after 2019.
yeah,
So this book came
Syed
out in
Ali
22. But
sir,
I've been told that some people have managed to get it in some bookshops.
we should print it and airdrop it. Syed Umesh Gilani from South Waziristan says, "Tilak sir, your thoughts are really thought-provoking. Think harder, brother. That's all I would say."
Yeah.
And the
I'm
last
glad I'm
question,
glad it struck a chord. You see, when a Pashtun comments on my book or what I'm saying, it is very satisfying because I have tried to be as objective and even
exactly.
sympathetic to the Pashtuns, to put their side of the story because they have very little of their own literature which they can tell the world. See, everybody has a very biased opinion about about Pashtuns. Okay, they are terrorists, they are this, they are that. I have a totally different view. And that's the view I've projected. And a lot of Pashtuns have written to me appreciating that, I've been very objective and said their side of the story, which has not been said so far.
Yeah, I mean, see, honestly, even in this channel, we crack jokes here and there. That's separate. But the analysis that we are trying to do is absolutely objective because it's in our neighborhood. I am worried about my own country, leave alone
True.
Pakistan. I'm worried. TK, if Pakistan folds, then I'm next.
Yeah.
So my worry is just that. And secondly, we need to understand this phenomenon. So that's the most important thing. Tony Wayne has an interesting question. He says Taliban somehow is able to play the right cards in the bigger scheme of things. I wonder where are the brains behind this.
Again, this is one of the misconceptions we have about the Pashtuns. They are the smartest people going. They're fantastic business people. They're fantastic strategic thinkers. And in the last 20 years, they've become fantastic diplomats because they have traveled around the world and met diplomats from other countries. So when you see them, in our mindset, man wearing salwar kameez, daadi hai, pagdi hai, you think ye to pendu hai. He knows nothing. They are the smartest people going. And most people, especially, I'm sorry to say, Pakistani Punjabis, mistake their appearance.
To be there.
Yeah, to say that these guys don't know nothing, we'll take them for a ride. You can't take a Pashtun for a ride for long. This is a lesson of history. You cannot take them for a ride. They're very, very smart people.
Let me just say this, sir. This was quite a thought-provoking, and I agree with somebody who said this was thought-provoking because for me, the main worry is that, as I said, one, it's Pakistan and what's going to happen in the other side of Pakistan where we sit, and secondly, a country that is inviting chaos in itself will obviously have splinters flying around all over the place, which will light up fires in India as well. We saw what happened with the Israel-Hamas incident. A lot of people say connected or not connected. Ground reality, there were 3 bomb blasts in India. which have not happened in the past 10 years. So you can call it connected, not connected, or whatever you may be, but fate would have it that there was, something over there and something over here. So there's always a connection within the neighborhood. So it's very important for us to, yeah, joke about Pakistan, but also understand Pakistan. It's very, very important for us to do that. Uh, Norman also says also the smartest military minds. Yeah,
Yeah,
well, the Pashtuns
no
have
doubt about
been
that.
very good fighters. That's
Yeah.
true.
And
That's true.
strategists, thinking things through, much
Yeah,
more so than Pakistan.
some guy who can wait for 100 years for his revenge is,
Yeah,
you know.
absolutely, absolutely.
So thank you so much, sir, for taking out the time. It's always lovely talking to you, and I'm sure the audience will also enjoy this particular episode and ask for a lot more from you. So hope to keep in touch and have you back on the platform very soon. Till then, sir, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, and a very happy Diwali once again.
Thank you so much, Adi. It's a great pleasure as always talking to you. You asked some very interesting questions and thought-provoking questions, which make me also sort of think and
Thank you.
articulate. And happy Diwali to you. Happy Diwali to your family, to all the viewers who are watching, and have a great year ahead. Health, wealth, prosperity, and many, many, many more podcasts for you. Thank you,
Thank
Adi.
you.
Thank you so much.